Have you ever felt like you're not really you? Like you're playing a role, smiling, nodding, showing up while something deep inside you is quietly fading away? Maybe you're the good daughter, the reliable husband, the high achiever. You say the right things, you do what's expected, and yet when the noise dies down and you're finally alone, there's a strange silence that isn't peace, it's emptiness. What if I told you that the emptiness isn't a flaw? That it's not depression or burnout or a midlife crisis? What if it's something far more ancient, a soul whisper trying to call you back home? See, we all bury parts of ourselves to survive. The part that raged, the part that questioned everything, the wild, sensual, untamed self that didn't want to fit in but wanted to be free. And over time you learned that those parts were too much. So you locked them away, hoping to be loved, accepted, seen, but in doing so you abandoned something sacred, your wholeness. Carl Jung didn't call this part evil, he called it the shadow. And here's the shocking truth: the shadow is not your darkness, it's your light covered in shame. It's not the villain in your story. It's the part of you that was exiled so the rest of you could survive. But survival is not living. And the longer you hide from your shadow, the more life feels flat, predictable, colorless. That's why you feel like something's missing, because something is. And maybe, just maybe, it's not that you're broken, but that you've been incomplete. So ask yourself honestly, who did you have to stop being to be accepted? And what would happen if that part of you came back? Not to destroy you, but to save you. Before we dive deeper into this journey of rediscovery, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Not because it helps the algorithm, but because it ensures you stay connected to the kind of content that speaks to your soul. When the next video drops, it might just be the one that says exactly what you needed to hear. So make sure you're the first to know. Let's be honest, we weren't born to be good. We weren't born to fit into neat boxes, smile on command, or carry the weight of other people's expectations on our shoulders. But somewhere along the line, we learned we had to. Because when you were a child, being your full self, wild, loud, sensitive, curious, angry, unpredictable, often wasn't safe. Maybe you were told to be quiet, to calm down, to stop crying, to stop asking so many questions. Maybe you were praised when you were obedient and punished when you were honest, so you adapted. You learned the rules. You cut parts of yourself away, not because you were weak, but because you were smart, because surviving meant being accepted. But here's the truth no one talks about. The more we try to become who others need us to be, the further we drift from who we really are. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And it's terrifying because doing so means facing what you once had to deny your shadow." The shadow isn't evil. It's not the monster under your bed. It's the part of you that didn't get love. It's the version of you that was too real, too raw, too inconvenient for the world around you. So instead of being nurtured, it was buried, labeled bad. And from that moment, a fracture began. You see, we create the shadow the moment we split ourselves, the acceptable self we show to the world, and the unacceptable self we hide. But that hidden self doesn't vanish, it waits. And it speaks through anxiety, shame, self-sabotage, sudden anger, emptiness. And here's where the illusion breaks. You were never meant to be one-dimensional. You were never supposed to be just nice, calm, put together. Life isn't about playing a role, it's about embodying your full humanity. But modern life, especially in the West, rewards the mask. We're told to be productive, pleasant, and palatable. And anything else? Too intense, too emotional, too real. But what if the very parts of you you've suppressed are the source of your deepest power? The shadow holds your lost creativity, your sensuality, your instincts, your rage, your voice. It holds the truth you were once punished for speaking. And unless you reclaim it, you will forever feel like something is missing because something is. Jung warned us that anything we deny in ourselves, we will project onto others. That's why we get triggered, why we judge, why we fall into toxic dynamics. We think we're reacting to others, but often we're reacting to disowned pieces of ourselves that we see mirrored in them. Have you ever hated someone for being arrogant when deep down you were taught never to take up space? Have you envied someone's boldness because you were told to shrink yourself? These reactions aren't random. They're signals, and they point toward the places where your shadow is waiting. The problem is, we've been taught to fear our shadow, to suppress it even harder. But repression doesn't heal, it hides, and whatever stays hidden grows stronger. So let's say it plainly. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your wounded twin. And healing doesn't mean silencing it, it means turning toward it with curiosity instead of shame. Because here's the paradox Jung uncovered. The shadow contains not only your suppressed darkness, but also your unlived light. Think about that. The version of you that is bold, creative, fierce, magnetic, it's there, but it's hiding behind the bars of who you were told you had to be. You don't have to be good anymore, you have to be whole. And wholeness requires truth even if it's messy, even if it's inconvenient, even if it means breaking the image you've worked so hard to protect. Because the moment you stop betraying your shadow is the moment you stop betraying yourself. And that's when healing begins. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." It's one of his most haunting insights and one of the most liberating. Because it reveals a hidden truth. Much of what you think is just how life is actually how your unconscious self has been quietly scripting your story behind the scenes. And at the center of that unconscious realm is something Jung called the shadow. But what exactly is the shadow? It's not a ghost, a demon, or some abstract philosophical metaphor. The shadow is real, painfully real. It is made up of every part of you that you were told wasn't acceptable. Every impulse, desire, thought, feeling, or trait you were taught to hide. Were you punished for speaking up? Your voice went into the shadow. Told that crying was weak? Your vulnerability went there. Shamed for being too curious, too angry, too sexual, too intense, into the shadow they went. But here's the kicker. Those parts didn't die. They didn't vanish. They were buried deep in your unconscious, and from there they began to act quietly, indirectly, through dreams, projections, triggers, addictions, patterns of sabotage, and despair. That's the horror of repression. You may silence the voice, but the energy doesn't go away. It just changes form, and often it returns as suffering. Jung believed the shadow is not inherently evil. On the contrary, what makes it dangerous is not its content, but the fact that it's ignored. Think of it like this. Imagine a child screaming in a locked room for years. Eventually, that child will find a way to break out, and when he does, it won't be pretty. That's what happens when we repress. The shadow becomes hostile, not because it is bad, but because it was banished. It becomes chaotic, not because it's wrong, but because it was never welcomed home. This is why Jung said the path to healing, to individuation, begins with turning inward, not to judge, not to fight, but to see, to recognize the rejected self, not as an enemy, but as a missing piece. Let's go deeper. Most people live their entire lives under the illusion that they're making conscious choices. But according to Jung, We're often just reacting, pulled by unconscious forces we don't understand. We repeat the same relationships, attract the same chaos, fall into the same emotional pits, and call it destiny. But it's not destiny, it's disconnection. Disconnection from your inner world, disconnection from your shadow. And until you build a bridge to that inner terrain, the same patterns will play out again and again like a broken record you can't shut off. Here's a radical idea. What if your shadow isn't trying to destroy your life, but trying to save it? Think about it. That anger you suppress, maybe it's trying to protect your boundaries. That sadness you drown out, maybe it's your heart's plea for meaning. That part of you that wants to scream, run, dance, break the rules, maybe that's your aliveness knocking from inside the cage. Jung believed that the shadow is not the enemy of your growth. It is the gateway to your transformation. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Translation: stop pretending to be perfect. Stop running from your mess. Go there, sit with it, dialogue with it. Because in doing so, you reclaim the energy that was once yours. Facing the shadow doesn't mean acting on every impulse or justifying every behavior. It means owning what's there, taking responsibility for what you've hidden. And from that place of awareness, choosing a new response. It's not about becoming dark, it's about becoming whole. And once you integrate your shadow, once you make the unconscious conscious, something incredible happens. You stop being controlled. You stop lashing out without knowing why. You stop collapsing under shame. You stop feeling like a stranger in your own skin. You become real. Not perfect, not always pleasant, but true. And in a world addicted to image, truth is the most radical thing you can embody. Let me tell you a story. There's a man, let's call him Daniel. On the outside, Daniel is everything people admire. He's kind, respectful, and soft-spoken. He never raises his voice. Always says thank you and I'm sorry, even when it's not his fault. People call him a good guy, reliable, easygoing. But Daniel has a secret. He's exhausted. Not physically, not even from overworking, but emotionally, spiritually tired. Every day feels like he's wearing a mask made of politeness. Inside, he feels like he's slowly disappearing. What no one knows is that Daniel grew up with a father who was unpredictable, warm one moment, terrifying the next. Anger filled the house like smoke. If Daniel spoke up, he was shouted down. If he pushed back, he was punished. So he adapted. He learned to survive by becoming nice, polite, quiet, safe. And most importantly, he learned that anger was dangerous. So he buried it. Every flare of irritation, every flicker of rage, he swallowed it, smiled instead. And it worked. People liked him. He became the peacemaker, the one who calmed everyone else down. But over the years, something inside Daniel started to crack. He developed anxiety, chronic stress, panic attacks. He couldn't sleep. His chest always felt tight. His relationships began to suffer not because he yelled, but because he shut down. He felt distant, emotionally numb, and disconnected from his own needs. One day, after a particularly tense moment at work, Daniel snapped. Not outwardly, but inwardly. He locked himself in his car and screamed. Not words, just sound. It terrified him, because it felt ancient, like something buried decades ago was trying to claw its way out. That was the first time Daniel realized. He hadn't outgrown his anger. He'd only exiled it. What he thought was his personality, the nice guy, was actually his defense mechanism. A survival strategy born in a violent household. And beneath it, buried in the shadow, was a part of him still screaming for justice, for space, for freedom. Daniel's story is more common than you think. How many of us are walking around like that, praised for our composure, admired for our self-control, while secretly suppressing parts of ourselves that never had the chance to speak? How many men mistake numbness for peace? How many women mistake self-erasure for love? We think we've moved on from our past, but what we've really done is silence it. The emotions we weren't allowed to feel, the grief, the anger, the shame, didn't disappear. They became ghosts. And they haunt us in quiet ways. The tension we carry in our jaw, the tears we choke back during small disagreements, the way we laugh things off that actually hurt. Jung warned that what we resist persists, and what we bury alive will find a way to rise. So ask yourself honestly, what parts of you are you still apologizing for? What emotions did you decide were too much? Who did you have to become just to feel safe? Because here's the truth, and it's a hard one. You can't heal what you keep pretending doesn't exist. Daniel began his healing not by fixing himself, but by finally listening. He began journaling, going to therapy, sitting in silence when anger arose, not to suppress it, but to understand it. And over time, he discovered that his anger wasn't dangerous. It was intelligent. It pointed to places where his boundaries had been crossed, where his voice had been stolen, where his worth had been denied. His shadow wasn't there to destroy him. It was trying to restore him. And that's what this is really about. This isn't just Daniel's story. This is yours, mine, ours. Because until we face what we've buried, we'll keep calling our suffering normal. We'll keep shrinking ourselves to be loved. And we'll keep wondering why joy feels so far away. But it's not far. It's just locked behind the door you were told never to open. Here's the turning point. You don't need to destroy your shadow. You don't need to conquer it, cleanse it, or bury it deeper. You need to meet it. Carl Jung didn't believe in eliminating the shadow. He believed in integrating it, welcoming it back into the wholeness of who you are. That's the essence of a process he called individuation, becoming not a perfect person, but a complete one. Think of it this way. Most of us are walking around like fractured mirrors. Pieces of us are polished and visible, the polite parts, the competent parts, the parts that make others comfortable. But the other pieces, the ones that are messy, wild, grieving, loud, sensual, afraid, are kept in the dark. And without them, the reflection is incomplete. You don't need to be better. You need to be truer. Because healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what you buried. The shadow doesn't need punishment, it needs your presence. So how do you begin? You start by noticing your reactions. Every time you overreact, shut down, or feel irrationally triggered, ask, what is this really about? What part of me is being touched right now? Don't answer with your ego. Don't try to be right, just listen. Maybe it's a part of you that was shamed for needing attention. Maybe it's a younger self that learned love was conditional. Maybe it's your fire, the passion you were told was too much. Whatever it is, it's trying to return. And here's where everything shifts. Don't fight it. Dialogue with it. Yes, that sounds strange. But Jung encouraged what he called active imagination, a process where you consciously speak to the parts of you that live in the unconscious. You give them space, a voice, a name. You ask what they need, and in doing so you build a bridge. Because every part you've been running from is actually a guide. The rage you suppress, it might be your inner warrior trying to defend your truth. The shame you carry, it might be your soul asking you to shed the false self. The sadness you avoid, it might be your heart grieving the years you spent hiding. And this is why Jung said that the shadow is not the enemy of the self. It's the missing piece. Without it, you are incomplete, half a person. But with it, you begin to move through the world with power, integrity, and authenticity. You no longer live on the surface. You no longer need constant validation. You no longer run from yourself. Instead, you stand rooted in something far deeper, your inner truth. And that truth might be inconvenient. It might disrupt old dynamics. It might challenge the roles you've been playing your whole life, but it will liberate you. It will set you free from the exhausting task of constantly being someone else. Because real freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's being who you are without apology. And who you are is not just light. You are dusk and dawn, silence and storm. You are the chaos and the calm, and every single part of you belongs. So stop asking, how can I be less angry? Start asking, what is my anger trying to protect? Stop asking, why am I so sad? Start asking, what part of me hasn't been heard? These aren't breakdowns. These are breakthroughs, invitations to come home to yourself. Because every part you fear is a doorway. And behind that door is not a monster. It's the version of you that never stopped waiting to be seen. So go there, gently, courageously, honestly. The goal isn't perfection, it's integration. The reward isn't applause, it's peace. And the result? A life that no longer requires pretending. This is the real work. Not becoming someone else, but reclaiming who you were before the world told you to hide. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too late. You are simply unfinished. The truth is, there's a part of you that's been waiting your whole life for this moment, the part that never got to speak, never got to feel, never got to fully live, not because you failed, but because you were surviving. And survival is no small thing. You did what you had to do. You adapted. You shut down. You dimmed your light. You wore the mask. And for a time, it worked. It kept you safe. It got you love. It helped you belong. But you were never meant to just survive. You were meant to come alive. And aliveness doesn't happen through perfection. It happens through integration. When you stop dividing yourself into good and bad, acceptable and shameful, and instead begin to welcome back every part of you with compassion. Because here's the deeper truth. You will never feel whole until you embrace the parts of you that you once thought made you unlovable. Your shadow, the angry you, the sensitive you, the selfish you, the rebellious you, those aren't mistakes. They are messengers. They've been holding your truth in the dark, waiting for you to have the courage to finally look. And when you do, something incredible happens. You stop apologizing for being real. You stop fearing your emotions. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into a life that no longer fits you. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, love differently, not because you became someone new, but because you finally gave yourself permission to be fully who you are. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is that privilege. This is that moment. The question is, will you take it? Will you step into the dark and meet the part of you you've been running from? Not to judge it, not to fix it, but to finally say, "I see you, I hear you, you're safe now." That's where healing begins. Not with force, but with presence. Not with answers, but with honesty. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to stop pretending, to stop performing, to stop waiting for permission to be yourself, because your true self has never been gone. It's just been waiting patiently behind the noise, the roles, the expectations, waiting in the quiet, waiting in the dark, waiting for you. And now, It's your turn to answer. So I'll leave you with one final question, the only one that really matters. Are you ready to come home to yourself? If this message stirred something inside you, don't ignore it. Like this video, share it, subscribe, but more than that, sit with it, rewatch it, reflect on it. Because maybe this isn't just a video, maybe it's a door, and all you have to do is open it. If this message touched something deep within you, if it helped you remember a part of yourself you thought was long gone, then let it be the beginning, not the end. Like this video to keep this work alive. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another moment of awakening. And most importantly, share your voice. Drop a comment below. What part of this resonated the most with you? What lesson, phrase, or truth are you taking with you today? Your story matters. Your reflections could be the mirror someone else needs. Let's keep walking this path together, one shadow at a time, one truth at a time, toward wholeness.